For several years, Edward Greene Malbone was dying slowly, constantly. But who was he? He was what they called a miniature painter. Not the man, his paintings. You could hold history in the palm of your hand with one of his little paintings. If you could see the private faces of early America, not carved in stone or painted on grand canvases, but preserved in moments meant only for loved ones, you would be looking at his work. This is a story of a young artist who lived briefly, painted small and quietly, and captured the emotion of life in a new nation before that nation even realized it had one. I'm J.D. Bias, historian and award-winning photojournalist, and this is Lens on History, where we help you learn to find hidden history, interpret it, and document it with a camera. And this season, we're in Savannah, Georgia, in the Low Country. So today, we're going to take a few pictures of this historical site where I am, Colonial Park Cemetery, and talk about taking a closer look, sometimes far closer than history expects us to. So say hey to Beck.
Hey everyone, welcome to this little episode.
Well, this little episode is about intimacy, connection, and an artist whose paintings were never meant to be seen by crowds, yet they survived long enough to speak to us across centuries. Now, stay with this story because what begins as an account of tiny portraits ends with something much larger. A reminder of how people loved, remembered, and defined themselves at the dawn of the United States. Okay, Beck, what did we find out about the man who was buried in Colonial Park Cemetery and has his own personal historic marker over his grave?
Okay, Edward Greene Malbone was born in 1777 in Newport, Rhode Island, a town whose fortunes mirrored the turbulence of the American Revolution. Once among the wealthiest ports in colonial America, Newport had been battered by war, occupation, and economic collapse. By the time Malbone entered the world, the city was no longer a place of grand certainty, but of rebuilding, adaptation, and quiet ambition.
This environment mattered. Malbone belonged to a generation that inherited instability and learned how to create meaning within it. Hey, Beck, his middle name is Greene. Was he related to our famous Revolutionary War general who's buried here in Savannah?
Well, his family, respectable but not elite, connected to Newport's mercantile and professional lines rather than old colonial aristocracy. His middle name, Greene, Greene, reflected family lineage rather than a direct connection to the famous Revolutionary general Nathaniel Greene, though the coincidence often invites speculation. What mattered more than bloodlines was proximity. Malbone apparently grew up in a community where talent, reputation, and relationships determined one's future.
Well, I was wondering because he painted a lady named Martha Washington Greene. She was the daughter of Nathaniel Greene, the monument in Johnson Square.
Okay. Martha Washington Greene, known formally as Mrs. John Nightingale, was born to Nathaniel and Catherine Littlefield Greene of the Greene family of Rhode Island, a well-established New England family involved in mercantile, professional, and social networks in and around Newport and Providence. Martha married John Nightingale, a member of the prominent Nightingale family, another respected Rhode Island lineage with deep roots. No, she was not directly related to Edward Greene Malbone, though the shared name reflects how common Greene families were among Rhode Island's colonial elite. So, no, but maybe very distantly.
I suspect probably distantly. I do know that from childhood. Malbone's gift for drawing was remarkable. While Other boys learned trades. Malbone observed faces. He would study posture, expression, and subtle ways emotion surfaced in people's eyes. Contemporary accounts note his early artistic promise. In Newport, he had access to imported prints and European artwork, and he absorbed them with remarkable speed. By his mid-teens, he was already producing portrait miniatures refined enough to attract paying clients. We'll show you some of those great examples in a while. Miniature portrait painting was more than a practical choice. It was perfectly suited for the world Malbone inhabited. In the late 18th century, Americans were constantly in motion. Families were separated by trade, war, and opportunity. Letters crossed long distances, but faces couldn't fade from memory. A miniature portrait could be carried in a pocket or worn close to the heart, placed beside a bed, and it was a substitute for that person's presence. By 17, Malbone was working professionally, first in Providence, then Boston, and New York and Philadelphia. These cities were shaping the cultural identity of the new nation. These were places where people wanted to be seen, and not just a survivor of the revolution, but as refined individuals worthy of remembrance. Malbone's skill placed him at the center of these aspirations. What made him exceptional was not just technique, though his mastery of watercolor on ivory was extraordinary. Ivory was unforgiving. Every brushstroke was final. Yet Malbone achieved softness, depth, and luminosity that gave his sitters an almost living presence. But technical brilliance alone does not explain Malbone's success. Miniature painting required physical closeness with the painter. Sitters spent hours, inches away from the artist, and the intimate or sentimental purpose of the miniature made the painter-sitter relationship usually reliant on trust. These are not public performances, but private encounters. Malbone was known as a gentle, thoughtful, and reserved young man, and his qualities allowed his subjects to relax. In these quiet moments, something rare happened. People revealed themselves.
Okay, as we mentioned once before, one of Malbone's notable early subjects was Martha Washington Greene.
Yeah, her portrait demonstrates what made his work so compelling. She was elegant without stiffness, composed without distance. Her gaze meets the viewer calmly, as if aware of being seen and untroubled by it. The scale of the painting forces the closeness. You do not observe her from across the room. You meet her face to face. These portraits existed within a network of relationship. A miniature might commemorate a marriage, seal an engagement, or serve as a gift between generations. They were objects of memory and display. Malbone understood this instinctively, if not professionally. His paintings were not meant to impress crowds. They were meant to endure affection. As his reputation spread, he traveled south to Charleston and Savannah, cities deeply connected to the Atlantic trade and European culture. Southern elites valued refinement and discretion, and Malbone found enthusiastic patrons here. Women in particular embraced miniature portraits as expressions of identity and intimacy. It was during this Southern period that he created one of the smallest and most astonishing works in American art, The Eye of Maria Miles Hayward. Measuring just 3/8 of an inch, it depicted a single eye, rendering it with breathtaking precision. This was part of the lover's eye tradition, a discreet symbol of affection that was worn close to the body. Only the person wearing it knew its meaning. If you're listening on the podcast, this thing, as I said, is 3/8 of an inch tall. And at this scale, the technical challenge bordered on impossible. Yet the young men succeeded not just in realism, but in presence. The eye appears alert, aware, almost conscious. It suggests a living person just beyond view. Malbone's southern years also deepened his engagement with family portraiture. He painted wives, daughters, and children, and figures often overlooked in the grand historical narratives. These miniatures reveal the domestic foundations of the early republic. Despite growing success, his health was failing. He suffered from tuberculosis, an illness that shortened countless lives in the 18th and 19th centuries. Still, he continued to work. Seeking improvement, he traveled to London and he studied European masters of miniature paintings. British artists had mastered the art, and Malbone picked up a lot from them. But he kept a uniquely American sense of feeling and intimacy in his work. When he returned to the United States, his later portraits reflected full artistic maturity. Works such as Robert Malcolm show richer color, greater confidence, and deeper psychological insight. In his final years, Malbone settled largely in Savannah, believing the climate might improve his health. The city also offered steady commissions and personal connections, but the illness advanced. In 1807, at just 29 years old, Edward Greene Malbone died and was buried in what is now Colonial Park Cemetery. His death sent shockwaves through the American art world. People as well as fellow artists recognized that something irreplaceable had been lost. Yet Malbone's influence endured. He had proven that American artists could match European refinement while capturing uniquely American lives. Today, his miniatures reside in museums and collections, still demanding close attention. They ask us to lean in, slow down, and see people as they once were seen by those who love them. Malbone did not paint monuments or battles. He painted connection. He preserved presence. In a nation obsessed with size, expansion, and scale, Malbone reminds us that history often survives in the smallest spaces, quietly waiting for someone to take a closer look. Okay, I'm going to go take some pictures, and we'll figure out what we need. Okay, this is the grave of Edward Greene Malbone. What do you photograph when a guy's in a grave? Well, you take a picture of the grave. Well, first of all, as a documentist or a photojournalist, you want to get the old basic rule is a close-up, a middle, ground shot, and a wide angle. So I'm going to get those three right now. So we'll see what we can get. Okay, we're going to try. Well, first of all, I'm going to try a low angle shot. If you can bend your knees or get your camera down low, like this little camera here has an articulating screen. So I could actually just do this and take the picture. A lot of phones don't have it. I mean, a lot of cameras don't have it. Your phone, you can probably see down low anyway. So try to get a few shots down low just as a documentary shot. This is not for award-winning pictures. This is just to document it. I don't know if we're going to get any award-winning shots out here today. It's harsh sun. I'm going to try some, well, what they call street photography. We'll try some of those shots a little bit later and just see how it goes. And if you're visiting Savannah, share this video with a friend and tell them where you're going. Or if a friend is coming to Savannah, send this to them and tell them to check it out. They'll know what to look for when they get here. And check out our affiliate links down below. If you purchase something on the list, it helps support the show, which means we may earn a commission, but you get it at the same price. But you'll support Lens on History. And as always, if you didn't already know this story, now you know.
Remember to hit like, subscribe, and click the bell. That way you'll know when new episodes are coming out, and it'll help other people to find the show.
What made him exceptional was his technique, and through his mastery.
Sorry.
No problem. How you doing? I'm a dog person.
Oh, sorry.
What's your name, huh?
This is Riggins.
What?
Riggins.
Reagan?
Riggins. John Riggins.
I'm mostly deaf. I used to have a golden,
Oh, really?
actually a golden lab mix. Best
Look like
dogs.
him. That's what they say you are.
Now, you like that scratching, huh? Here's what my doggy likes right there.
Thank you.
About 10 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can stay with me. They can go.